Hey everyone, and welcome to Rambling Reviews, where we analyze different types of media and/or their cultural relevance. My name's Christian, and this is Titanic. Released in 1997, written and directed by James Cameron, and starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. Now, I was born the same year this movie was released, so I kind of grew up hearing just how incredible this film was, how it was just an amazing story. It was incredibly well done as far as the technical aspects, the historical accuracy, all these different things. It was a great work of historical fiction and just a great movie in general. I mean, it was number one at the box office and number one on like charts and critically and commercially successful for years and years until it was eventually beat out by, funnily enough, James Cameron's own Avatar, the 2009 one with the blue aliens. And then later now, Endgame has beaten them. But regardless, I understand that this film has come under some criticism in the past 10 years or so. But I really wanted to take a look at this and just kind of see if this holds up today. And spoilers, yeah, I think it absolutely does hold up. But as we get into this here, we'll get into it with this review and analysis here. The story opens with a group of treasure hunters exploring a now shipwrecked Titanic that is way deep at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Now, I do want to say right off the bat here that I'm really not. I really don't care for this whole the moments in the movie where they focus on the present. However, personally, I would have preferred they just tell the story that took place in the early 1900s. However, I do really appreciate that they go in and show kind of just all the wreckage and what the Titanic has become. We see like kind of this horror scene of what it is now, which will be very well juxtaposed with how incredible everything's going to look as we get further into the film. But what the crew is looking for here is a gem called the Heart of the Sea. Now, they don't find the gem itself, but they do find a picture of a woman wearing the gem around her neck. So the main treasure hunter, the guy leading the expedition by the name of Brock Lovett, is doing interviews on TV and all those different things, where he starts talking. They're asking him, and he's talking about the whole event, and he's talking about how they're looking for this thing called the Heart of the Sea. That's what this gem is called. And an old woman hears about this and calls them up and tells them, "Yeah, that woman in the picture there, that's me." So they fly her out over to where they're stationed. As she's brought on board, one of the crew members even, does this like reenactment that through this digital thing showing how the ship actually sank, which I can only imagine must have been absolutely traumatizing for this poor woman. She explains that she is Rose. She is, like I said, the woman in that picture. And after some discussing here, she does finally get to discuss the actual thing because they're asking, and they do make a note as well of the fact that it took 2 hours and 40 minutes for that Titanic to actually sink once it was hit by the iceberg. So an interesting fact here is all of the parts that take place in like on the Titanic, all the parts that take place in the past that aren't in the present here, that whole section, if you remove all the present bits, it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. So personally, I could have done with the movie being 2 hours and 40 minutes as opposed to the like 3.5 hours that it is. But in any case, it's neither here nor there. I kind of talked about that already. But so she starts talking to them, and and she finally begins telling the story. And now we transition to where the movie actually starts taking place, and the part that, again, I'm sure many people actually care about, as we're introduced to a much younger version of Rose, as well as Jack. Now, Jack has won 2 tickets to the Titanic for he and his friend, as in basically a lucky game of poker, whereas Rose is being escorted by her soon-to-be husband, Kaladin Hockley. Now, we have this really great moment here where we see, first of all, we see the juxtaposition between Jack getting on the boat and Rose getting on the boat. She narrates, the older Rose narrates about how to her this was like a prison because, as we'll find out later as we continue on here, she really doesn't want to be marrying Cal. And we're going to find out that the real reason she's marrying her or marrying him is ultimately because her and her family, the Dewitt-Bukater family, don't really have anything to their name anymore. So the mother is kind of putting her up to it to marry this guy largely for his money so that her and her mother can be comfortable and all that good stuff. And, it's really kind of sad for everybody in this way. Now, I do want to take a moment to just mention real quick here, Rose is 17 in this story. Jack is 20. Jack Dawson, as we'll find his name to be later. Jack is 20, and the Rose's fiance is, I'm not entirely sure how old Cal is specifically, but I point that out because I know that a lot of people, especially these days, might look at that and be like, oh, that's horrible or whatever, that she's only 17 and she's a child. And looking at this with modern sensibilities, it's very easy to kind of be like, oh, that's wrong, that's evil, and I totally get that. If you feel that way about this kind of thing, I totally understand and respect that. This is one of those things where, again, remember, for one, that kind of thing did happen, like, relatively often back then, but also, this is fictional, so if you want to, like, age her up to, like, 18 or 19 in your mind, by all means, if that's what if you want to do that, I totally get that. I might do that myself even, I don't know, but I don't think that just that simple fact is worth writing off the whole story, but I do want to point it out because I know it can definitely be kind of an ick for a lot of people these days. So, yeah, I just want to kind of, preemptively get into that. But moving forward, what's really cool here is we see the juxtaposition between Jack and like how he is, not only how he and his friend got there, but also how their living situation is. They're going to be bunking with a bunch of the the lower class people, if you will, whereas Rose is getting this like fine dining, this very upper class treatment. There's a moment where she's bringing these paintings that she loves and that are hers, that she seems to cherish. And this is a great moment where we see that Cal does not care about the fine arts at all. He even makes a mention of how this artist who did one of the paintings, or at least a few of the paintings, named, of course, the famous Pablo Picasso. Now, there is a moment, and this is a really quick, subtle, easy way of character building here, where Cal just scoffs at him like, something Picasso. He won't amount to a thing, trust me. And what's great about that is, for one, that clues in the audience to realize how famous Picasso's paintings are now and how much he did amount to, as well as how Cal is really just such a dick kind of on all levels. And we're going to see more of that as we continue on here. But, like, he is not a redeeming character in the slightest. And, he is, like, just crooked, aristocrat, hoity-toity, like, the worst it can get. You know what I mean? Like, just the absolute worst sleazy businessman kind of guy. But, there are several moments like this throughout the film that I quite enjoy, where we see different characters and references to people who would become famous much later, like Sigmund Freud, for example. And there's all these different, like, and they talk about these people as if they're, existing now. And you have people like Cal and the other aristocratic people kind of scoffing at these people's work, where it's like, dude, they're a big deal now. So it's just, I love that juxtaposition that, you only really get looking at this through a modern, or even then modern lens, even 26 years ago lens, almost 27 years. Well, I'm almost 27, but technically the film is 27. When did it come out again? Okay, it came out in December, so we're still good. Yes, almost 27 years old. But in any case, we have this great shot where we see all of the inner workings of the Titanic. We see the captain. We see all these different things, and then we finally see the Titanic itself in all its glory. Something that's really interesting, and that James Cameron and I believe others had addressed in interviews about this, was like, how do we tell a story where we already know the way that it's going to end? How do we hook audiences? How do you do that? How do you grip audiences when we already know going into it, yeah, that boat's going to sink? Well, you build up everything and make it memorable and worthwhile. You give these characters, like, you make these characters memorable. You give them all this, like, well, character development and stuff. You tell this incredible story of these, in this case, these kind of, I don't know if you call them star-crossed lovers, but these, like, people that just find each other in all this madness, and all these different things. You tell this incredible story, and I mean, you paint a beautiful picture. I mean, it's fascinating. It's absolutely incredible, everything that they do with this film to make it, and I mean, the again, the historical references of all these different things. There's a character, one of the, I'd say a secondary character in it, is Molly Brown, who is Margaret Brown is her actual name, and she would be known as Molly the Unsinkable, as Rose mentions in her narration. And like all these different things, all these different references to people, and all these events, and just, it really is incredible. But whether you're here for the spectacle, or if you're like me and you're here for the story and the characters, well, you'll enjoy it either way. And speaking of said story and characters, we have our first taste seeing how displeased Rose is as she's sitting at this dinner. And again, everybody's just very hoity-toity, very, kind of, just very up their own ass about everything. And Rose can just sense it and feel it, and it's like, it's suffocating her. And once again, we have yet another contrast as Rose basically storms out of this dinner. I don't know, they got drinks and stuff. Maybe it's not dinner, but it's some kind of, sit down where they're smoking and drinking and whatever. But as she gets out of this to get some kind of escape, we see yet again Jack as he's conversing with some people that are also lower on the lower deck of the ship, that are around his class. And there's even a point where he kind of mentions, and he and some other people that he meets are kind of talking about how, yeah, we know where we stand, we know where we're at. And then for the first time, Jack and Rose see each other. Now, we have this moment here, and honestly, I don't know if this is intentional or this is me reading too much into it, but we notice Rose is up on the higher level, looking down at Jack, whereas Jack is, down on the lower level, looking up at her, and yet they seem, they're like in sync with each other. She doesn't scoff at him. He's mesmerized by her beauty, but he doesn't, he's not like worshiping her or anything like that. To which, though, the new guy that he meets does mention that, he doesn't have a chance with her. Like, not someone upper class like her at all. Now, I do want to point out, though, this other guy, this man's name is Tommy Ryan, and I don't know. I imagine this was intentional. For those that are unaware, there was a time where the Irish, as well as the Italians in America, were very much discriminated against, and I think that's what they're going for here, where they have Tommy and other people here that are also Irish on the lower deck. So again, it's a pretty, rather subtle, like, way of doing things. They don't, what's so cool about this, right, is this entire film, they don't, there's a rule in filmmaking of show, don't tell, and they do a really good job with all that stuff. They're not spelling out to you, oh, this is what's happening. Oh, here's this Irishman who's also, lower class because he's Irish. Like, They're not doing that. This is like the audience can just look at this and pick up on this stuff. But you know, yeah, yeah, I really like this stuff. But this is the first meeting, or the first interaction, if you will, of Jack and Rose. Rose is then essentially taken back by Cal and is not happy about the whole situation. But now, and this time, pretty sure it is actually dinner because it's nighttime. They're again. She's at one of these extravagant events and everything, and you know, it's very, again, hoity-toity, very stuffy, and we have older Rose narrating, essentially saying how she feels like she's suffocating and like she was she was going to die, essentially. She had to get out, and what she does is she takes off again, but this time she runs to the end of the ship and climbs over the railing where she's about to kill herself. Now, she's just holding on, thinking about dropping, but our hero, I guess in this case, Jack, just happens to be out and about in the area and goes to rescue her. But he doesn't rescue her by manually pulling her in or anything like that. He just talks to her. For one, he talks to her like a regular human being, not this like whatever everyone else is kind of viewing her as, but he empathizes with her. He shares with her a story of when he grew up in Wisconsin, about how he fell through an ice fishing hole and how horrible it is to be in ice cold water like that. And the whole time he's like he's getting his clothes off and everything, and he's saying, he's like, if you jump, I'm gonna have to jump in there after you. You jump, I jump. This will become a callback thing for the two of them later, which is really will be really cool. But yeah, his whole thing, and he's like, which is why I'm gonna hate it when you jump, because I'm gonna have to swim in there after you. It's gonna suck for me. So I really hope you can help get me off the hook here by not jumping. And man, it's such a great way of doing this. This movie does such a great job here too of playing with the audience's emotions and expectations. I watched this movie originally a couple years ago, but I watched it again very recently, like just before for filming this for this review. And you think, okay, this is the end, she's going to climb over, but she slips on her dress, and now she doesn't want to die anymore. She's about to fall to her death. Jack grabs her and she's screaming. Jack's able to get her to pull herself up, bring herself over the boat, but the way that she lands kind of looks like Jack was trying to take advantage of her. He wasn't, of course. We know that, Rose knows that, the audience knows that, but who doesn't know that are Cal and the others that have come to her rescue, her not knowing what was up, right? And so they originally start arresting him until Rose speaks up and tells him, no, he saved me. And she can't say, oh, I was gonna kill myself because I'd rather do that than be another minute with you. But what she can say is, she was leaning over the boat to look at the propellers, apparently, and that she had slipped. Now, one of the people do mention as well, after everybody leaves, well, it's kind of odd that you had your shoes off and everything if, she just slipped and, this happened so quickly. I think they kind of knew. They didn't know necessarily like what happened exactly, but they kind of knew that he saved her in a different way, potentially. But because they saved her, originally they go to give Cal goes to give him $20, which again, early 1900s. This must have been incredibly, it must have been an incredible amount of money back then. Nowadays, it's like, I mean, it's nice, but like, it's not really worth someone's life. And Rose even points out, even with $20 back then, is $20 all that the life of the woman you love is worth? To which Cal, reluctantly is like, you're right. Why don't I invite you to a party we're having? And, this is where Jack will, of course, begin getting integrated into Rose's life, and they'll be able to spend more time together and get to know each other and things of that nature. And I there's just, again, this film, like we'll see it more and more here, but like it really does just play with expectations over and over again. You think you know what's going to happen, and then boom, something else happens. And just, we're going to see this, especially when we get to the climax, but it's just constant. And here we have a very important scene as Rose is gifted by Kaladin the heart of the ocean, the same necklace that she's wearing in that picture, which will come into play later here. This is a really great moment where we're seeing Cal really trying to buy Rose's love. He even tells her, "There's nothing I would ever deny you, nothing I can't give you. If only you won't deny me." And he asks her to, open her heart to him. This shows that he realizes that she's being guarded. Now, I don't know for a fact. I'm thinking that she probably hasn't slept with him. They probably haven't consummated their relationship or their marriage. Of course, this was the early 1900s, so maybe it would have been, even more taboo, and they wouldn't have done it to actually, sleep together until they were married. But just because that was like what people were supposed to do back then doesn't necessarily mean that's what people always did, right? In any case, though, as we have this moment though where Cal is just so proud to have bestowed these riches upon her, whereas Rose is horrified. For her, this gem signifies, probably similar to the ring on her finger, her entrapment. She doesn't want to be in this relationship. She's only here for his money. She's only here because he can provide for her and her family. Something I do want to mention here as well, because we see a lot here, even in this image, that Rose has, for one, very red hair and very curly hair. Now, the actress Kate has actually mentioned that, so she's a natural blonde, and she naturally has straight hair. So they always had to recurl her hair on set. They always had to recurl her hair to get it to be the way that it is in this. They also decided to make it what it was. The kind of fire red that it was, to be something that's very unique. Apparently, James Cameron just asked her after she auditioned for Rose, or as she was auditioning, like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And that's what they did. She didn't really have any objections, so she thought it was a cool idea. But apparently, it took her a long time before she could go back to her natural blonde after that, because it was just hard to do, I guess, afterwards. And we've now reached our first real bonding scene between Jack and Rose. The two of them are walking across the deck, discussing, her being saved and all that, her kind of thanking him and everything, right? And he makes a comment to her because, he sees her engagement ring, and he's like, "Wow, look at that rock. You would have drowned. It's a good thing you didn't jump in." And, she mentions, she's like, "There are 500 invitations out for this wedding. All of Philadelphia society is going to be there." And she says how she feels in a crowded room, and she's screaming and no one even notices. And, from this point, Jack just straight up asks her, "Do you love him?" And we see this moment in Rose where that question is, it pangs her. And the reason is because she doesn't, and she knows she doesn't, but she doesn't want to acknowledge that fact. So of course she's like, what a horrible thing to ask, and he's like, "Well, it's a simple question." And she's like, it is not. I don't know you, you don't know me, we're not having this conversation. She doesn't want to answer because, again, she doesn't, right? So we have this moment where she first kicks him off the ship, and then, or not off the ship, but off this deck, and then, or no, she leaves, and then it's like, wait a minute, I don't have to leave, you leave. This is because, Jack is the riffraff, right? He's the lower class. He's like, "You go to your part of the ship, right?" And he's like, "Well, now you're the one being rude." And we have this great banter, this great back and forth, this great kind of teasing between the two. Then she sees his sketchbook. She starts reading through it. Now, this whole scene is an incredible work of showing bonding between characters. It's, a great example to learn as far as flirting and things like that go, it's amazing. It's because we have where Jack and Rose, they're teasing each other, they're having this banter, this back and forth. Then we have where, as she's looking through his notebook, she, first she sees that, okay, he's a talented artist, which we already know she's into because she likes, Picasso, right? She likes his work. But also, she sees his drawings and she notices that he really sees people. He sees people for kind of who they are, how they're, and then she sees these, which obviously I can't show these here, but she sees nude drawings of beautiful women in Paris. Now, this is kind of establishing and having the conversation turn also sexual, a little bit erotic. So she's getting, kind of that taste and see that side to him as well. Then they turn it, back to kind of funny, jokey fun again, where he's like, no, look, I never hooked up with her. She's a one-legged prostitute, and he shows her an image, which the audience never get to see that, but she looks at it, and I'm assuming it must be true because she's like, oh, um, and then we have another moment where she turns the page, and this is where she sees even more that Jack really sees these people. He shows her this drawing of this old woman at a coffee shop and all these other things, and we just have this really beautiful bonding moment where we have like so many different layers of conversation and of flirtation and connection that this is just absolutely incredible. It isn't hard to see, even now already, why this is such a good love story and why people, enjoy these characters so much. We have this moment where we have the captain talking with a man who really wants to push the Titanic to its limits, and he's like, oh, they're already writing about it from the papers, but I want us to really get there and really push full speed ahead, and they'll I want us writing about the papers for sure. Of course, this is a thing of irony and foreshadowing where, yeah, they're going to be writing about them in the papers the next day, all right, but not for the reason that not for the reason they would want. As we continue on, we see that the sun is starting to set as Rose and Jack have been talking and just, having this incredible conversation for seemingly hours. It was afternoon, or it seemed to be afternoon at the time that they began. And they seem to have just been spending this whole day together, this whole time talking. And then we have this moment where Jack kind of brings out that less proper, uptight girl inside of Rose that she wants to be, as they stand on the edge of the edge of the railing on the side of the ship and hawk loogies out to the sea, where her family sees them, and they're kind of taken back. They're like, this is no way for a lady to behave, that whole thing, right? I mean, they don't outright say that, but they definitely have that vibe. And they have this very disapproving air over Jack specifically. But we have this character because, again, Jack is invited to dinner with these people. And we have this character, again, I mentioned Molly before, where she really kind of takes Jack under her wing. She's like, she really kind of feels for him. She asks him, she's like, wear your best suit. And like, I don't have a suit. She's like, that's all right, I'll help you. And we have this moment where she really is helping him. She's helping him to fit in and to really. I really like Molly in this. I mean, obviously, we're supposed to. That's the whole point, right? But she's kind of like, if you will, the good one of the aristocrats of this aristocratic group of people, because she comes from new money, as Rose narrates as well. But she hasn't let it go to her head or anything like that, because she remembers her roots. She remembers where she came from, effectively. And, it's just, it's incredible. We have this, nice moment where, they're discussing. Molly even tells them, she's like, these people love money, so act like you have it, and they'll be eating out of the palm of your hands. We have this beautiful moment where, Molly's like, care to escort, two young women to dinner, and he's got Rose and Molly on both of his arms, and it's like, dude, this is awesome, man. He's even though he's not interested, attracted to Molly, he's still going to be kind to her, show her a good time, all that stuff. It's really sweet. It's really cool. There are a lot of moments though. So as Jack attends this dinner, everybody loves him. I mean, it's just everybody except Cal. And I think Cal can tell pretty quickly that Rose is starting to like him a little bit here. Jack might be a little bit of a threat because him and Rose's mother are very dismissive of Jack. He mentions about how, they ask him, oh, where do you live? He's like, well, right now I live here on the Titanic with you guys. After that, as he says, I'm on God's good humor. And, to which, the mother, and you find that sort of rootless existence appealing, do you? And we get a shot of Molly just being very, like, glaring at her as she knows, like, okay, bitch. She's like, your hoity-toity ass. No, we just have this great moment where, and of course, one of the rich guys is like, I think all game is a thing of luck, wouldn't you say? And then Cal, and they really do all just talk like it's like very, oh yes, I say rather, it's like, and Cal, he's like, oh no, a real man makes his own luck, and then we have this just incredible speech from Jack where he's like, yeah, I mean, I got all I need right here. I got, air in my lungs. I got sheets of paper so I can draw, when I need to, or, what have you. And, you never know what life's going to give you. I like having not knowing where my next meal is going to be or who I'm going to meet, Now I'm with you guys, and just yesterday I didn't know where I was going to be, and he says, every day is a gift, and I don't intend to waste it. You got to make it count. And Rose is the first one to raise her glass and say, to making it count. And we have this shot here where everybody else raises their glass and is like, oh yes, here, to making it count. Except for Cal. We see Cal here still very, yes, he's stunned, but he's very taken aback. He does not like Jack. Like I said, Jack is clearly at this point the life of the party. Shortly after dinner, the rest of the men retreat to smoke and discuss business and, again, very hoity-toity aristocrat stuff. Very stuffy, very all those different things. And we see with Jack and Rose sees in Jack, this man is nothing like these people, like nothing at all. He is like, the complete opposite. He enjoys life. He enjoys people. He cares about others. All this different stuff, right? He's not some selfish, rich, pompous asshole like my soon-to-be husband, who I don't even want to be with. All these different things, and they do even invite Jack to, go with him, and he's like, oh no, I got my own thing I got to get to, and Cal's like, oh, well, yes, I imagine business and politics wouldn't concern the likes of you. Again, they're very much just like these type of people. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch this, do yourself a favor and actually watch this. You'll see that even like the how I'm doing like these guys' voices, that is actually how they talk. But Jack very smoothly gives. Okay, I want to mention as well, by the way, there's this thing that Jack and Kaladin toss back and forth at each other. I don't actually know what it is, but it's clearly something where Jack tosses it to him, and when he leaves, he tosses it back to Jack. It's some kind of power play of some sort. I don't know what it is, but it's like it rattles when he throws it. I can't figure out what it is. It's purple, I think. I don't know. Whatever the case, Jack very slyly wrote down for Rose to meet him at the Clock if she wants to go to a real party. Well, not if she wants to go to a real party. He tells her, oh, you want to go to a real party? After she meets him. So again, we have this incredible scene where we see the fun, the excitement, and the attraction just building between Jack and Rose here. They go to this thing, this area, in the lower deck where it's a bunch of, primarily Irish people. And there's music, and there's beer, and there's dancing, there's all this just fun stuff. And we have this really sweet moment, and there's people of all ages there too, like kids are even there. And there's this really sweet moment even where Jack's dancing with this little girl. And, it's sweet, you have that little kind of thing. A lot of times you'll have older brothers will do that with like their younger sisters, all these different things, all this kind of stuff, right? And it's very much that kind of vibe. And Rose sees this, and she sees that, like, oh, like, he's good with kids, he's he likes people, he's a great guy, like the attraction to her again is just building, and again, he's everything that Kaladin is not. Like, she's just seeing, and then the biggest thing is they're having just so much fun together. Like, they're dancing and they're having this great time, and there's this moment where she's like, these guys are arm wrestling. She's like, okay, you guys think you're so tough. She's got a few drinks in her at this point. She's like, can you check this out? And she does this like ballet thing where she stands on her very, very tippy toes. I'm talking like ballet tippy toes, like the tips of her toes. And immediately falls into Jack's arms, where she's like, I haven't done that in years. And man, again, the attraction, the fun, the excitement, everything is just building here, and this is just an incredible, incredible moment. But we also have Kaladin's, employees, people that work for him in some way or another, were telling her, and they see what, her at this party. So they, of course, report it back to Kaladin. So the next morning, we have Cal lecturing Rose, saying how, listen, you're not going to do that kind of thing again. And she tells him, she's like, look, I'm not one of your workers in your mills. You don't control me. I'm your fiance. And this just tips him over the edge as he tips the table over and gets right in her face. He's like, yeah, that's right. You're my fiance. You're my wife in practice. And as such, you should honor me the way that a wife is meant to honor her husband. And there's a few things that this scene does. One, this spells it out that, yeah, this dude is an abusive, manipulative piece of shit. Obviously, part of the reason for this is because they want the audience here to root for Jack. They want us to root for Jack and Rose. Which, I mean, even from the jump, like, she never liked Cal, and we'll get into this more as we continue on here. But and as he says, like, you should honor me the way that a wife honors her husband. Again, it's not explicit here, but I'm thinking they haven't slept together, and he's pissed about that. But at the same time, he really makes note to her that she embarrassed him, and that really is the biggest thing here. Not that he was worried about her, not that he's worried that she's cheating on him or anything else like that, but that she embarrassed him. That's what the real issue is. That she's supposed to be a good, dutiful little wife and obey her husband, and because guys like this, he doesn't want a relationship. He wants a woman to control and to do everything he says and nothing he doesn't, and all those different things. So after all of this, we have Rose speaking with her mother once again about how, basically, look, we are really in dire straits financially. This guy, no matter how much you don't want to marry him, he is our ticket to a good life. Obviously, Rose wants more out of life, but she, tries to contend with the fact that, okay, I have to do what's right for me and my mother here, and I can't see Jack anymore. I need to stick it out and marry Cal, even though I know deep down in my heart, I don't love him. I don't even like him. We have a few other moments here. So Jack does try to, speak with her again, and they just completely shut her out. Cal and the rest are like, yeah, no, it's not happening, dude. You're not going to see her again. We're very appreciative of you saving her, but get out. We're not. No, go leave. So we have this whole thing here where we have this little moment where the captain is talking about how, with his kind of his crew, about, they're warning him, oh, there's possibly going to be icebergs in the distance, and Rose is even there, and he's like, oh, don't worry, that's quite normal for this time of year. And we have another moment where, as Rose is walking along with the architect of the ship, who is explaining to her, he's like, yeah, we don't have enough boats for everybody. We only have about enough for about half of the people on deck, or on the ship. To which, Cal kind of is like, well, we don't even need these on an unsinkable ship. And yet, obviously, this is foreshadowing. And again, this is great because, like, we, the audience watching this, even back in 1997, they knew, we know what's going to happen. Like, we know what's going to happen. And yet, they still, the way they deliver all this is like, it's a little breadcrumbs of like, oh, here's the warnings, here's the this, here's the that, here's the unpreparedness, here's the haughtiness, here's all these different things that will ultimately lead to the Titanic's downfall. But they don't know that, but we do. And yet even knowing this, we're what's the word I'm looking for here? Captivated by this story, by these characters, by all this. We know what's going to happen, but we're still like, we're watching. We're like, oh my god, like, what's going to happen next? It's like, I know what's going to happen, but it's wild. It's just absolutely wild how this is all done. But we also have Jack kind of pull Rose in and try to talk to her. He's like, listen, I just want you to be happy. You jump, I jump, and they almost have their first kiss, where she's like, I can't be with you. I'm going through with this. I'm gonna marry Kaladin. All these different things, right? And then we have her at yet another dinner event, where again she's like, and I think what sets her off this time is she sees another aristocratic woman with her aristocratic daughter, making sure she stands up straight and she has her little napkin on her lap and all these different things. And I think she sees that and realizes, this isn't the life that I want for me, and it sure as hell isn't the life that I want for my kid. If I have a daughter, I don't want her dealing with this shit. So she runs. She runs again. And this time, she runs and intentionally visits Jack as he's at the front of the ship. And we have the iconic moment where she holds out her arms and, kind of acts like she's flying, and the two share their first passionate kiss together. This is, I've never been on a cruise while in a relationship or anything, but my god, I mean, who doesn't want to recreate this with their partner? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, yeah, it's, who doesn't want to? You know what I mean? It's such an iconic moment. It's such an iconic scene. And as the sun sets, Rose, again, older Rose, says how that was it. That was the last time the Titanic ever saw daylight. But then we have yet another very iconic scene, as we have Jack and Rose enter into what I believe are Rose's bedchambers, and she has that necklace, the heart of the ocean. She tells him, she's like, all right, Mr. Artist, I want you to draw me like one of your French girls wearing this. And he's like, all right. And she says, wearing only this. To which he gets to like, oh, okay. And we have a very just beautiful, romantic, erotic scene. Again, I can't show it here. I can't even show the screenshots here or anything on YouTube for obvious reasons. But this is how that drawing we saw in the beginning that they uncovered, this is how it came to be. So, Jack draws her. She loves it. It's so cute, even in this moment, as she like, it's really sweet. Like, she reveals herself to him for the first time, fully nude, fully giving herself to him in this way, at least visually. And he's like, yeah, just go sit on the bed, the couch. He's flustered. He's like, but he's very attracted, very sweet. He's trying to keep it cool and be professional, and it's so sweet. And the whole time, like, she's giggling and laughing and having a lot of fun and all these different things. And I feel like now's an important moment to bring up the fact. No, yeah, okay, we'll get to that here. Okay, so I want to address the elephant in the room. This entire love story is an affair. This is one born out of infidelity. The main character, she is, well, I'd say Jack and Rose are kind of equally the main character, maybe. I'm not entirely sure, but, Rose is 100% cheating on her fiance. And I want to be clear on this. I think infidelity is one of the worst things you can do to somebody. I've experienced it myself. It's not fun, not a good time. I think it's awful. I really do think it's awful, and I think in a lot of media it's very much downplayed, and I don't like that. I think it's glorified. But in this film, this is one in which, Rose had never been shown, like, from the beginning, Rose was shown that she didn't like this life she was being thrown into. She wasn't marrying Cal out of love. She was marrying him. I keep saying marrying him. It's the eyeliner, I guess. Marrying him out of convenience and for his money. And one thing I want to be clear about: if you attract somebody with just money or with just one thing about you, don't be surprised if that's all that they like you for. You know what I mean? So we'll address this a little bit more later as we continue on, but yes, I am well aware of the fact that this is, it's not great how their relationship started here, but again, she didn't want to be with him. Like, she didn't want to be with Cal. She didn't love him. It wasn't like she loved him, and then she, like, betrayed him or anything, or and he doesn't love her. Like, we see time and time again, he doesn't love her. He's possessive of her. He's controlling. He's conniving. He's manipulative. He's potentially going to be physically abusive. All these different things, right? It's not good. So, I think that all of that just needs to really be understood as we look at this here and understand how all of this plays out. But in any case, once the drawing is done and we have Jack and Rose, sitting together, just kind of admiring it, he signs it April 14th, 1912, and we are now officially at the date of the sinking of the Titanic. Like Rose said previously, that was the last time the Titanic would see sunset. So this is where shit begins to hit the fan. First, we have a little bit of, kind of foreshadowing here where we have, it's getting cooler, and people are kind of making mention of, oh, it's getting, because they're getting closer to these icebergs, right? And people kind of mention, like, oh, it's getting cooler, all these different things, right? But we have where Cal's lackey has now found Jack and Rose and is on his way trying to get them. And we have this beautiful moment where Jack and Rose are now together, and they're running away. Now they're fully together. They're fully, with each other, having this relationship together, right? So they put the drawing as well as the diamond and a little note in the Cal's, it's not called a chest, a safe. Puts it in the safe, and Cal's lackey finds them and starts chasing them down. So now the two are just having even more fun running away from this guy who, as Jack even mentions, like, what, this guy used to be a cop? And Rose is like, yeah, I think he was. And and the two of them, they're running through, and they run through like all throughout the ship, and it's just really, really incredible. We have this really kind of cute moment where they're in this elevator, and Rose flips the guy off as they're going all throughout the ship, and they're just running away from this guy, and obviously, like, yeah, this is really kind of symbolic of Rose being free, being herself. She's like, I'm not dealing with this fucking hoity-toity bullshit. I want to be with him. I want to have his kind of life. I want to have fun and adventure and be with somebody who actually loves me and sees me as a person and not some fucking dress-up doll or some bullshit, like, and as they're running through and they make it to this, they run throughout the, I don't know what it's called, but this area where a bunch of workers are shoveling coal into the engines. The engine room, duh. So they're going through the engine room. They're going, all throughout, like, again, the entire ship, and they make it to this storage area where they have like boxes and different things, and they have this car in the middle of it. Now, this car is also a very, famous scene here, because this is where Jack kind of funnily, he gets in. He's like, "Where to, miss?" And she just whispers in his ear, "To the stars." To which she then grabs him, pulls him in the back with her, and the two of them finally make love. They finally consummate their relationship here and just have an incredible time together. And we have this moment where like the like glass is like steamy, and which I don't know if any of you have ever had sex inside a car. Not the most fun. Wouldn't really recommend it. It can definitely get steamy, and there are ways to prevent that apparently. I never knew them back when I did, so and clearly they didn't either. But in any case, yeah, the Cal's lackeys are tracking them down, and they do see the car now that it has all been steamed. I'm pretty sure they know what's up now, and Cal finds the drawing. He finds this note where Rose is basically telling him "fuck you." He says, because as he says, he's like, "Now you can keep us both locked away," because that's what he wanted to do, right? He wanted to keep her like locked away from the world, and again, just have her like obey his every whim, and all these different things, right? And I mean, yeah, it would have been horrible. So it's yeah. But remember, this is the Titanic. So while it seems Rose and Jack are going to have a happy ending, and she says, "I'm getting off with you, we'll figure it out, I don't care, like, let's just figure out life together," there are these two guys that are like essentially watching. I don't know what their titles are. We're going to call them watchmen, I guess. Um, and they're watching for, I guess, things like, inclement weather, icebergs, and they do see the dreaded iceberg, to which they begin alerting everybody, and this is where everything falls apart. Like I said, this is the Titanic after all. So this is where we begin to see everything happen. We get our first shot of the iceberg as it crashes into the boat right near where Jack and Rose are standing, and almost literally comes in between them. There was a lot of promotional material on like the posters and stuff, and kind of the tagline for the movie was nothing could ever come between them, or nothing could separate them. And we have this iceberg literally coming between them, literally separating them. It's incredible, visual storytelling, and this is just absolutely incredible. But from this point, like I said, all hell's breaking loose. From this point, we see just everything of the ship fall apart. And I gotta be honest, there's not really that much to analyze here, except for another thing that's we're about to get to here. There's this moment where Cal and Rose decide to warn I'm sorry, Cal. Jack and Rose decide to warn Cal and her mother, and they meet up with the guy who's been tailing them. To which this guy sneaks the medallion, the heart of the ocean, the gem, in Jack's pocket, in Jack's coat pocket. And as he does, once they get there, Cal tries to make it look like Jack stole from them, and Rose seems to buy it. So, of course, the whole point here is to make it look like Jack is really just a petty thief who was after the gem and didn't really care about Rose at all, that he was using her to get to, the gem, get her money, and all those different things, right? When, of course, we know that isn't the case. Rose should know that isn't the case, but, in any case, from this point, all of the people, so like I said, Rose does kind of buy it, and he's arrested and taken to where they take arrested people on a ship. They don't have jail, they don't have a prison, so they just, they take him to a low, very, very low part of the ship. And with that in mind, from this point forward, there's this whole emergency happening. And from this point, most of what happens here for the next large chunk of time is just the ship falling apart. Now, on a cinematic level, and again, if you haven't seen this, I highly recommend checking it out. It is absolutely incredible. But on a story analysis level, there's not really much to talk about, and I'm kind of looking at this like, yeah, it kind of looks cool, but I don't really care. Because, like I said, personally, I'm here for Jack and Rose. I'm here for the characters. I'm here for all. I know the Titanic falls apart. I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like, personally, that's just me. I'm not going to take away from any of the cinematography, any of the set design. All of that is absolutely incredible. The acting, everything, phenomenal. Everybody involved, great work. But me personally, it's not what I'm here for. It's just not. So with everyone being alerted, the captain and different people are trying to get things in order to, get distress signals sent out and all these different things. And Rose runs into the architect, Mr. Andrews, as he's referred to as, Thomas Andrews specifically. And she tells him, she's like, look, I saw the iceberg and I see the fear in your eyes. What's going on here? And he says, all of this is going to be at the bottom of the Atlantic in about an hour. I don't want to cause a panic, so only tell the people that you need to, and get to a life vest or a life raft as soon as you can. Remember what I told you about those? And she's thinking about, how there aren't enough for everybody. So we have this moment here where, now we have this whole bit. And we have the life rafts, and we have everybody, trying to get, all the women and children. That's the main thing. They want to get the women and children first, and then they're going to worry about the men and boys, and, well, I guess that would include women and children, right? So, but, I don't know exactly why they did this for the Titanic, but I do want to be clear. This precaution of women and children is not a normal thing. Like, a lot of people think because it happened during the Titanic, like, that's what you do. That's not the way safety procedures work in general. A lot of men feel slighted about this because they think, oh, it's always save the women and children first. No, it really kind of is first come, first serve. I would imagine the reason they did this, and the reason they did, you would think to do this kind of thing specifically in general is, well, I don't really know, because you could think, well, I guess because, no, I don't know, actually. I can't really think as to why it would make sense to have women necessarily go first. Anything you could think as far as, like, ensuring the survival of the society or the species or whatever, like, you need male and female to create life, so it doesn't really make a difference if it's women first. I don't think, at least. So as Rose and her loved ones are getting ready to get in the raft, the mothers are like, oh, I hope they're not too crowded, again, being a very hoity-toity bitch, right? Well, we'll be seated to class, And Rose is like, Mother, shut up. Don't you realize there's not enough boats, not enough by half. Half of us are going to die. To which, Cal responds, not the better half. And as, Ruth is in the boat, they're waiting for her. He says to her, he's like, it's a pity I didn't keep that drawing. It'll be worth a lot more by morning. And this is where Rose puts it all together. She realizes, oh my God, you found the gem in the necklace with the drawing, and you did plant it on Jack. He's innocent. This is all bullshit. I can't believe I fell for this. And she says she tells her mother goodbye, and she leaves. And as she does so, in a last ditch effort, Cal grabs her, and he's like, "What? What are you? You're going back to him to be a whore to a gutter rat?" And she says, "I'd rather be his whore than your wife." Such a powerful line, such an incredible, good, very well delivered, very well written, just amazing line. And in a last bit of desperation, Cal tries to grab her one last time. He's like, no, I said no. Very much this entitled, bratty, rich, snobby, he's so not used to not getting his way at all. And how does Rose ultimately get away from him? By spitting a loogie in his face. That same very unladylike thing that she was encouraged to do with Jack, the man that she has actually fallen in love with here. It all comes full circle. It's all just incredible here. But so Rose now is off and is off trying to find Jack. She meets up with Mr. Andrews. So Mr. Andrews directs her to where she needs to go to get to Jack, and the two are finally reunited, but he's still handcuffed. So we have a moment where she scours to, go through, and she finds an axe in a fire thing. You know how they have an axe where they might have fire hydrants and stuff too. They also have an axe. Anyway, she gets an axe and is able to break the handcuffs that are binding him. The two are finally free and reunited, and this is the part where everything is really falling apart. We get a few more character moments here. We have some, I would say, kind of social commentary occurring, where we have things like Cal makes sure to go back for his money because that's all he knows. We have, people that are meant to, be kind of protecting everybody and things like that, really, kind of losing it and just shooting people that get out of line. We have all these different things. It's chaos. It's a very, very, very chaotic event. We do have a really sweet moment, though, too, where we have a group of musicians that are all playing together. And at first they leave and they're like, all right, that's it. We gotta, get to where we're gonna go. And then one of them just comes back and starts playing again. And the rest of them join them and they're like, all right, we're gonna go. They're kind of just resolving themselves to, we're gonna go down with the ship. We're gonna go down playing and just having a good time and doing what we love, which is making music. So it really is kind of a beautiful moment here. Like I said, though, Cal being all conniving as he is, he tries to buy his way onto a boat, all these different things. Of course, Jack and Rose are going through the whole thing. I mentioned before about class divide and stuff like that. We have this moment where, as Jack and Rose are getting back to the top of the ship, they run into some people that are, more, well, the lower class people, who, of course, the upper class don't really want. They're like, hey, they know there's not going to be enough lifeboats for everybody, so they want to keep the less desirable people, the lower class people, out to make sure the upper class survives. And so we have this great show of character where, as Jack, Rose, and everybody else are, behind the gates here, and they're not going to let them through, Jack grabs this bench with a few other people, and they just ran the door open to get through. Again, we're seeing people's resilience, we're seeing their camaraderie, we're seeing, again, that class divide, we're seeing so many different things here. this entire moment of the film is just so action packed and so, it's just absolutely incredible. We had earlier flares being fired off to get everybody, to know, so they could, call for help, all these different things. We have this moment as well here where Cal and Jack are both with Rose, and they're both trying to convince her. So finally, Jack and Rose have almost made it to a boat, and Jack's trying to convince her. He's like, "Listen, you got to get on the boat." And she's like, "No, no, I'm not. I'm not going without you." He's like, "Come on, get on the boat. Get on the boat." And Cal steps back in, and he's like, "Yes, get on the boat, Rose." And he's like, and we have this moment here where this is the most caring I think we see Cal, because he does throw off the coat she did have on that Jack had for her, and give her his as like oh look, I can still see, I can still take better care of you. But he does tell her as well, I have an arrangement with an officer on the other side of the boat, and Jack and I can both get off. To which I think this is the only moment we see of him being a little bit selfless, where he is lying for the sake of Rose, because he knows, he can tell, he sees right here, she's not going anywhere without Jack. If he's not safe, she's not going. And he wants to make sure she's safe. Now, granted, it could be for completely selfish reasons, where he plans on getting her, on trying to win her back or something once Jack's dead. Could be the case. I don't know. But what I do know is this is the closest we see to him doing something good. In this case, yes, it's still lying, but he's lying to get her to safety. So I do think that that's an important kind of, character beat for Cal here, and Jack, because as soon as she does get on the boat, he's like, they both kind of congratulate each other, like, you're a good liar, yeah, almost as good as you. So you actually have this other boat arrangement, and and of course Cal responds, well, you're not going to benefit from this arrangement, and I'm thinking that Rose sees in Jack's eyes that he's saying, like, I am fucked. He's like, I might die here. That she then jumps off of the boat onto a lower deck, and Jack and her reconvene and meet in that on the grand staircase area. And we now have a moment where Cal followed, and at this point he has snapped. He steals his gun, or he steals the gun from his right-hand man, and begins shooting them and chasing them down. I think this is the ultimate moment where he is just really having the mentality of, if I can't have her, no one can. As he starts shooting, really he could hit either of them. And he just chases them down to where the water is, the shallowest, but it's still very much there. And if it weren't for him running out of bullets, I'm sure he would have kept chasing her down. But he does make note to his right-hand man. He's like, I put the diamond in the coat, and I put the coat on her. So now the diamond's gone too. And with all of this, I think this is a really important moment, because of the simple fact that this is where we see just a huge difference between Jack and him, where Jack, or we had this moment even earlier in the beginning, where it seemed like Jack's thing was essentially to be like, if you are happy, if you love this guy, I'll leave you alone. I will be with you, or I'm sorry, I will leave you alone and leave you to be with him and be happy and everything. But he could tell that she wasn't happy, so that's why he continued to pursue and everything. especially since she changed her mind and came back to him after he did let her go. His whole thing was like, if she doesn't want to be with me, I'm not going to force her. Whereas, you know, um, Cal's whole thing is, if she's not going to be with me, I'm going to kill her. If I can't have her, no one can. So we see the difference between actual love on Jack's side and possessiveness on Cal's side. And we also see yet another moment of selflessness as Jack and Rose are trying to figure out a way out. They come across this little boy that's trapped, and they selfishly just pick him up, take him, and they do actually manage to find the boy's father and reunite them and everything. But again, we're just seeing these selfless moments, and again, there's all this action. At this point, it's pretty much just action. It's pretty much just they're going through the water. There's a lot of swimming. I mentioned earlier about Kate's hair. She did also say that because of her whole situation with her hair, there was basically it was very hard to keep curly like Rose's is supposed to be. So when they were doing all the stuff in the water, yeah, it was straight because that's how her water or how her water that's how her that's how it all is. That's how her hair is. Your hair returns to its natural state when it's wet. Cut back to our favorite character, Cal, as he meets up with the officer that he bribed to get him a special boat. To which the officer starts kind of shooting some people out of order, and he explains, he's like, "Your money's no good here. It's not going to do any good at the bottom of the ocean. I'm not. Deals off basically." And he shoots himself and falls overboard, and that's the end. That's the end of this guy. But as we continue on, like I said, it's just action and action, and Cal picks up this sad, like kind of lonely woman, or no, woman, sorry, little girl, and takes her and gets in a boat this way. This sad little girl who like doesn't have any family. We don't know what happened to her family. She doesn't know what happened to her family. He just takes her and uses her for his own means to say, "This is my daughter. I'm all the family she has. Please let me on the boat with her." And they do. And it's like, this is the height probably of his selfishness and his just, Calvin's not a good person. And this movie makes every effort to show you he's not a like, oh, he's kind of a good person or he's redeemable. No, no, no. He is a horrible, horrible human being the entire way through. There's no bones about it. So Jack and Rose come across Mr. Andrews one last time as he apologizes for not having built a stronger ship. He gives Rose he gives Rose his life vest and decides to go down with the ship. And here we are seeing everybody just, we have some of the more hoity-toity top hat people, having one last drink, one last brandy or something. We have the captain choosing to literally go down with the ship. We have this sweet old couple laying in bed for one last time together as they embrace and die together. We have a woman and her children. She tucks them in bed as they're about to die. We have just all of these moments, and the ship is finally like it's done. We have just this scene of absolute calamity with some people jumping off, people, I would imagine, falling, all kinds of just havoc occurring all across the boat on all levels. Well, the two levels kind of that are still left. And Jack and Rose, Jack tells Rose, he's like, "Rose, we have to stay on the ship as long as possible. We have to stay, get to the top." And that is what a lot of people are doing. We have this funny moment too where they're going up these stairs and this priest is reciting the "Though I walk through the valley of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me." That kind of prayer. And As they're going up, Jack's like, "Hey, you want to walk a little faster through that valley?" I mentioned earlier, and I meant to touch on this earlier about how how much this plays with expectations. Again, we know certain people are going to die. We know a lot of people are going to die. We know most people are going to die. We know Jack and Rose somehow, some way, clearly get separated in the end. So even that moment you had earlier, where Rose is getting off, and you have this bit where she's watching as the boat's going down, and the music starts playing and everything. That's kind of a figure to the audience of like, this is it. This is where they're going. This is where they're going to be separated. Rose got away on a raft on a one of the lifeboats, and Jack sunk with the ship, or most likely he sunk with the ship. He was never seen again. All these different things. But in actuality, we saw what we saw earlier, and we continue, and Rose's mother and Molly are looking in terror as the ship is just, I mean, it is being destroyed. It's being torn in half. It's being like everything. Rose and Jack are hanging on as the ship capsizes. It's a mess. It's the whole thing is it's yeah, it's a mess. It's being destroyed. We have a bit where they sink, and again, another fake out. You could think, okay, this is where they get separated. Rose gets saved and Jack is lost forever, essentially, right? No, they get to this door, and people who don't even know this movie, haven't seen this movie, know about, like, it's kind of a meme about this door, and we'll get to that right here. All right, now we're going to have spoilers for a 26-year-old movie, but I understand there are many people who haven't seen it who may want to. So if you want to avoid the spoilers moving forward here, go ahead and go to the next chapter, and you'll hear my thoughts on the whole film in general. But moving on then. So I am very much of the opinion that with this door, yes, Jack and Rose could have both fit on it, and there was no reason that Jack needed to die. But because he's hanging off the edge in Atlantic cold water, he catches hypothermia and freezes to death. I mean, we even see that Rose has frost on her hair. She tries to wake up Jack, realizes he's dead. Some, we'll say, Coast Guard people that, got the message she needed help need the help. She gets a whistle from some dead guy, blows it, and is able to be rescued. And now we come back to the present part of the film, the part that I don't really care for. The people listening to her story explain that, we never found anything on this Jack Dawson, and she explains, no, you wouldn't. He wasn't, he was lower class. He wasn't someone that, would have record kept of him. But now he was real, and he saved me in every way someone can be saved. And she says, I've never told anyone about this. And she says to her granddaughter, not even your grandfather. And this is a point that a lot of people have issue with. Jack, so this is something I've seen recently, people kind of take issue with, like, I saw this like tweet or something where someone said, like, imagine, your wife, your girlfriend, your whatever, right, being so obsessed with this guy who, was so, basically this whole thing of like, she never got over him, right? I don't want to speak to that a little bit, because she says, a woman's heart is a mysterious ocean. I understand how people can see that and see this story in general and think that this is really not good, that Rose is not a good person, that she shouldn't have kept this from people, that she shouldn't have, you know, started her relationship with Jack by it being an affair, all these different things. I understand all of those concerns. However, man, that's just sometimes relationships are that way, life is that way. Sometimes people have that special person in their life who just means so much to them. One thing I want to point out is just because she loved Jack and cherished these memories, and she even says, he exists now only in my memory. One thing I do want to point out with that, it is possible that Jack was never real, that she like made him up, or he's a like example of he's a metaphor for her finding her freedom on the Titanic, but that he was never real. That is a possibility. But just because she loved Jack and had this incredible life with him, not life, this incredible couple of days with him, this incredible love with him, does not make her relationships afterwards any less valid. And it doesn't make her relationship to like her husband, for example, doesn't make her relationship to Jack any less valid. Most people have multiple relationships throughout their lives, multiple times that they fall in love and fall out of love and all these different things. Your first love isn't any less valid just because you find love again later in life. And that isn't any less valid just because you had loved someone else before. So I do just want to kind of, you know, address that issue that I've been seeing people having with this kind of story now. Um, and as we continue on, we have this moment where she goes out to the sea. They talk about how, they never found the gem, or they never found the diamond. She goes out to the sea, takes the necklace off that she has, takes the necklace, throws it into the ocean. We have a little flashback where Rose notices the diamond is in her. Oh, and she tells the people, once they're finally saved, she tells them her name is Jack Dawson. She mentions how Cal had moved on, he remarried and got his millions. However, she does also mention that the crash of 29, the Great Depression, really hit him hard. And, you know, I think because we have her throwing the diamond into the ocean, and then we have her peacefully sleeping, and I believe this is her finally falling asleep for the last time and going to rest. And as we do, I think this is symbolic of her letting go of this piece of her, throwing it back into the ocean to be with Jack, in a way, even if just metaphorically. And we have this final beautiful shot where we go through the Titanic one last time, and we see all the architecture, we see all the pretty everything, we see all these people around her. It's 100% a dreamlike sequence as Jack takes her hand and they have one last embrace and kiss as everybody around is clapping, and it's this very joyous moment. This is a dream. This is her remembering one of the most important moments of her life, as I believe she fades away and she passes and dies. It's finally laid to rest. So we finally end the film on My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion, and that's the end. That is the end of Titanic. This movie, my God, it's incredible. I mean, just absolutely amazing. Is this the best movie ever, in my opinion? No. But is it worthy of all of the praise and admiration that it's gotten for so long? 100,000% yes. This movie is, if not the best ever, this is 100% one of the greatest of all time. This is a movie that I believe everybody needs to see. My God, it's incredible. It is phenomenal. Again, I've addressed, some issues people have with, like, Rose's age, or um, fact that her and Jack's relationship, was essentially an affair. I addressed that more in the spoiler section, so you might want to check that out after all. Or went more into detail with that. But, like, you know, just an absolutely incredible film. Just fantastic. I mean, yes, the cinematography, the set design, but the characters, the acting, the writing, the everything. My God, this is such a good movie. Such a good movie. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and watch this movie. It is phenomenal. I mean, it's got everything. It's got action. It's got romance. It's got eroticism. It's got social commentary. It's got, like, it is. Uh, Again, it's not my favorite movie, but I'm after rewatching it, especially, I would definitely put this in my top 10, maybe even my top 5. I don't know, but God, it was amazing, just absolutely incredible. I highly recommend you finding this movie and watching it however you can. You owe it to yourself. If you like movies, if you like stories, if you like drama, if you like romance, if you like any of these things, if you like, absolutely fantastic, absolutely incredible. Highly recommend. But as always, guys, these are just my thoughts. Let me know what yours are in the comments down below. Subscribe, ring the bell to stay up to date. Leave a like if you like. And if not, I hope you find something to do like. Later, guys. Peace and love.